Good evening, Marcia. Good. It's nice having you here in my house, and I'm in yours.
Well, both of us were there resting ourselves on Sunday evening. Sunday evening you have your Sunday lunch and you just laze around and you rest and so on. What is it that got you off of your couch in front of your TV or your iPad or whatever? What is it that got you off of your time of relaxation to be on here with us this evening? What's on your
This
mind?
this absolute deception that the government is perpetrating on the people of this country, in terms of the pensions amendment and the national insurance amendments. First, let me tell you, right, that if Barbados don't wake up, we will find one day that we don't have any country in any country at all. It will be belonging to the Barbados Labour Party and the people who run it. There is nothing in this legislation that was necessary or urgent. I don't understand why you would have something brought to Parliament on a Friday. The normal parliamentary day is Tuesday. You bring the Parliament as though it's an emergency, like you think that something's going to happen like that with COVID, and you rush it through Parliament in all its stages, and they're going to do it in the Senate next week. And that is to deceive people. Now, let me tell you why I say this, right? I've studied the legislation because it's not very long. And when I look at the legislation, the only thing in this legislation that is different from what the National Insurance Board can do right now is to hire staff. That is the only thing. Everything else in this legislation can be achieved under the current legislation except hire staff. Section 11 of the National Insurance and Social Security Act prevents the board from hiring staff. It put that as a civil service function. And there was a reason for that. Errol Barrow, who introduced the National Insurance Scheme, the right excellent Errol Barrow, he decided that the board should concentrate on the investment of the funds and leave mundane things like personnel work to the personnel professionals. And as a matter of fact, the only statutory board in Barbados that has this provision is the National Insurance Board, because the National Insurance is a statutory board. They are changing it from a board to a board. They are trying to trick people, talking about giving it establishing a corporate body. National Insurance is already a corporate body, and it can sue and it can be sued. It isn't like if you sue National Insurance, you don't have to sue the Attorney General. If, for instance, the ministry have you are you have to sue the Attorney General, not sue National Insurance. National Insurance is a separate legal entity already. And they're saying, oh, they want to be able to do commercial things. Now, if building all those buildings and renting them out isn't commercial, what is? Because if you go to Warren's, just a little bit from here, you will see a building on the hill where you get the ID cards and stuff from. That belongs to National Insurance. National Insurance built that and is renting it to government. Not for government to pay the rent. The one Warren Bottom they call Baobab Towers. National Insurance built that and renting it to the government. They are building a fire station. Now, National Insurance don't need a fire station. So if they're not investing in government already and they're not doing commercial things, what is they're renting? That's commercial activity. But why you can't do other commercial activity, only rent to government? No, they're deceiving us. But they're deceiving
so let me say, let's be clear. So you're saying that the old NIS bill or document that governs how the NIS is run, it's not much different. The only thing is its ability to employ.
Yes, that's the only difference that this bill now has that the other one doesn't have. For instance, Section 4 of the National Insurance and Social Security Act says, the board shall be a body corporate, having perpetual succession and a common seal. That's subsection 1. 2, the board may sue and be sued in its corporate name and may for all purposes be destroyed by such name and service upon the board of any notice, order, or other document of whatsoever kind shall be executed by delivering the same to or send it by registered post addressed to the secretary, the board, at the principal office of the board. The board should have the right to acquire and hold real or personal property for the purposes for which the board is constituted and subject to the approval of the minister to dispose of or to charge any property. It is already a corporate entity. It isn't a normal statutory board, like a government department that can't operate unless you have the Attorney General. It has its own structure already. The only difference is Section 11 of the National Insurance and Social Security Act that says, and I will read it for you, it says, staff. The minister shall, by order under Section 2 of the Civil Establishments Act, Cap 21, establish the offices which shall constitute the offices of the board's establishment, which offices shall, for all purposes, be deemed to be offices in the public service.
So now it's the minister that is now employing.
No, this is the minister of the civil service. This is how you create jobs in the public service. The minister responsible for the public service,
right,
publishes an order. It used to be the Civil Establishments Act, but it's now the Public Service Act. And the minister determines after the department put forward, well, we need people for this amount, that this salary we want to pay. The minister's advisors then tell the minister, okay, it's okay. And the minister signs off. The minister don't really do any work in that regard. The professionals then go through and say, well, this is, they really need these, or they don't need all these people, or whatever else. And that's how it's supposed to be done. National Insurance over the years, even though they had no authority to hire staff, started doing it. And paying them, and they don't know how they pay them, but the National Insurance money, this might be embezzlement for all intents and purposes, because if you have no authority to spend money in hiring people and you do that, then you've broken the law. But
so why do you think that, Mr. Franklyn, I this is so important what you're saying, but why do you think that this is now a change in this new NIS bill?
You see, why they want that is that there are certain jobs in the public service that have to have certain qualifications for the particular post. If you don't have the post, there's something called the Public Service Qualifications Order. Now, if you don't have those qualifications, you can't get the job. Now, if I have seen at statutory boards where some person ended up being general manager, and the only thing they left secondary school with was their empty lunch box, and they ended up being general managers of a statutory board. So, because even though you might have qualifications set up for statutory boards, they're not enforceable in law. The board could decide, well, I don't mind what the qualifications say, I'm still going to hire these people anyway. Or the minister can call and say, well, look, yeah, I know you got qualifications, but this is my man.
Right.
So you hire him. You cannot do that in a government department. So in order to affect that change, the government come up with all this ruse. It's a ruse. Because they said here in the legislation that it was set up. It would set up committees. The old legislation said the board could set up committees, whatever committees it thinks fit. So even if you give those committees a name now, the board could think fit and give it those names. It is nothing new.
So why do you think they are? Because it's very strange. All I'm saying, it is very strange. It seems like they're keeping us, something they want to keep us in the dark about, that they would present it for reading on Friday, and by Wednesday, the next business day, they are debating it in the Senate, which we know it's going to be passed in the Senate. What do you think is the reason for this?
When they have something to hide, that's what they do. You remember when I was a member of the Senate, my perpetual complaint was that I only get this bill this morning, or I get it last night. And I get it at 10 o'clock to get to the house for 11 the next day. And my mate was emailed to me at 10 o'clock. Not that I actually received that. And they complain about it all the time. I didn't get a lot of support from the other senators because, hell, They are appointed by the government, and they can't criticize the government, because if you criticize the government, the Prime Minister will fire you.
So you're saying that you believe there's something that they're trying to hide while they're rushing. We don't know, but you're thinking that that might be the case.
There's something that they want to hide in addition, because they have emptied out the National Insurance Fund for their purposes. Let me show you. The National Insurance Fund is our money. Whoever contributes, that's our money, put down there for our pensions. The government is a trustee of that money.
Yes.
Now, you know that if you are a trustee of money and you spent the money not in accordance to how you're supposed to do it, that would be a criminal offense, and you will face the court. But fortunately, the government make the rules. If I were the trustee for the National Insurance Fund and I did what the government did, I would be in jail now. And they're taking the National Insurance Fund that is not theirs and spend as they like. And what is worse, you have a situation where the National Insurance don't have a say in no, we can't give you this money. The minister overrides everything. Even if the board says no, the minister says no, pay the money. So you don't have a choice. The minister decides that the money will come out. No, but you have a situation where you're borrowing money from me. You're going to dictate the terms that you're going to pay me this money. You're going to tell me what interest payments I will get. And then you can also decide, you know something, I ain't paying it back at all. How is that fair? And when you do that, there's no recourse. National Insurance should have some sort of independent body that will tell the government, no, we can't lend the money now. So all you put all these fancy things in place and you still have the minister responsible, you have just spun top in mud. You are going nowhere, because the minister can still override the board, still override all those other committees and decide, yeah, we're going to take out your money. And let me tell you something, see? A lot of people don't know this, but I was on a pension committee stuff years ago when the NUPW nominated me. I discovered back then in 1989 that the actuaries already determined that the National Insurance Fund will go bust by 2035 if nothing happens, if they don't make some corrective measures.
What year was that?
1989. Right? So when Owen Arthur took government in 94, he decided that he's going to do what the last administration didn't do. And he's going to fix that. But he went about it with gusto. He lowered the amount of money that you will get from your pension. He reduced he changed the formula, so when you apply, you will get less pension than the fellow would have gotten under the old formula.
Right.
He increased the contributions, and then he increased the maximum level of contributions, what they call the maximum insurable earnings. And that was supposed to put the National Insurance Fund in good footing, and it was. But when these governments see the money going in, and it looks good, they start taking it out. So Owen Arthur fixed it, and then a whole set of people come in and decide that they're going to give it to their friends, lend it out this way, and then this last administration, this current administration came in, and on their first acts of treachery to the people of this country, they took up the money that they borrowed for national insurance to write it off.
Wow.
Over $1 billion. But what is worse, national insurance, if you fail to pay national insurance money that you collect or ought to have collected, it is a criminal offense in Barbados. And you can see the inside of a jail for it. But national insurance don't ever do that. They go at the civil matters and they file unpaid certificates against you, which is like a judgment in the High Court. So you have judgments in the High Court for hundreds of people, and national insurance refuses to publish their names because some of the most prominent people in this society, some people's fathers and all, would be at the top of the list. So they're not publishing these names.
So they don't want to publish the names because of who these people are.
These people are, and they owe millions. I remember when
I want the people to see this is why we're saying your government is keeping you in the dark, guys. They're keeping you in the dark, and there's a reason for that. Continue, Mr.
A few years ago,
Franklyn.
I went to the registration department and I sat down behind those big books, taxes and national insurance book, and I totaled up the principal owed, not the principal or interest, just the principal. And when I got to $2 billion, I get tired, and I gave up the ghost. But it's well in excess of $2 billion. And then the government turned around and wrote it off. You remember when the government wrote off all these things?
Yeah.
They wrote it off. This is money that people, and thing is VAT, NIS, money that you collected from people. And then the government says, look, if you to keep it.
They decide to keep it. And you know, this is why we say Barbados, wake up, because even from the time that happened, there should have been noise in this country, because we put them there, the people put them there, you know, and they went ahead, wrote it off, and now come with all of these different things that they're trying to do, and do it quickly. That's it. That's the thing about it. I have Miss McLean who's going to come on. Is there? I know you have a lot more. We're going to give you some more time, but tell us another area of the new bill that is concerning you.
Well, I want to tell you about the other bill, if you don't mind.
Yes.
The pension bill, because this is the biggest scandal in this country now, and people don't realize it. In 1989, the pension age for parliamentarians was 55.
Mm-hmm.
Those people lowered it, and then lowered for themselves to 50.
Yeah.
And then took the civil service thing up to 67. While they were taking theirs down, they were carrying their biases up. All right? So right now, an MP will get a pension 18 years before a non-MP.
What you telling me? What you telling me? Explain that one to me. I don't understand, because I don't think, I'm a lay person. Explain what you just said to me there, because that doesn't make sense what you just said. You're telling me that go ahead.
Members of Parliament qualify for a pension under the legislation at age 50. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And these same people who get their pensions at 50 turn around last week, Friday, a couple of days ago, and decided that everybody else should get their pension at 68.
Okay, the 18 years, 50 and 68, 18 years. And what are Barbadians saying about, guys? Let me hear your thoughts about that in the chat there. I remember in Jamaica, you remember they gave themselves over 100% increase. The government there, and I up to the Prime Minister to give back his. So we want to know what is Barbados going to do? That was Jamaica. Let's hear about Barbados. What you want to me 18 years? 50
years. but also I can jump between legislation, because they qualify in 8 years for half their salary as their pension. You have to serve 8 years, 2 terms or 8 years, whichever is the greater one. And you get half of your salary. Currently, a civil servant, before these new changes come in, currently, right now, a civil servant has to serve 10 years to qualify for 1/5 of his salary, while they're serving 8 to get half.
Oh Lord, no, you're giving me pure jokes today, man. It gets
worse. It gets worse, Marcia. You hear people talk about, I serve my 33 and a third. That is that's big. The maximum pension as a public officer, 33 and a third years. MPs get their full pension at 12 years.
No, hold a minute. What is this? What is going on here, people? Barbados, Bajans. No man, Bajans. No man, Bajans. No, listen, it's no wonder they're doing this all the time, and people were doing people walking up and drinking and all kinds of things to the people totally distracted, because Belgians can't let this pass. This
No, they give you
serious.
you jump up and think and you forget all about it.
You jump up and forget it. You walk up and it gone out your head.
You know, Rex Nettleford.
Yes.
He said, he's a Jamaican professor at the University of West Indies. He said when the slave ships came over the Atlantic, the first port of call was Barbados.